last decade, the X-Men movies have thrilled and excited cinema goers all over the world with their unique perspective on the comic book universe. Now audiences can go back to the beginning with X-Men First Class. Over the next half hour, we'll talk to the cast and crew about getting the X Factor.
It's a dream come true for me.
And there's a closer look at some of the movie's most breathtaking scenes. We'll also step behind the camera to see how the movie came together. And in a world exclusive, the film's co-stars go face-to-face for 35mm.
That remains like my fondest memory on X-Men. I actually have the scar to prove it.
But first, mutants go back to school in X-Men First Class.
Well, at the very beginning, we meet both Charles and Eric when they are much younger children. Charles has grown up with every privilege, whereas Eric is still deeply affected by the traumas of his childhood. My son is finished! And so they're both on extremely different paths, and at the point where they meet.
We have it in us to be the better man. We already are.
I think Magneto and Professor X, I love the idea of two people wanting the same thing but having two different ways of getting at it. The idea of humans mutating, the whole sort of evolution concept I've always thought was fascinating.
Alex Summers, hope you're not planning on putting him with others. First guy I've ever met who actually prefers solitary confinement.
Humans haven't really discovered mutants. You know, there's a few people who are starting to be aware of them in the world.
You like fish, I like fish too. Maybe we should get a bite sometime and talk about it.
I'd rather go out with the fish.
Charles is just finished his PhD at Oxford University.
Name's Xavier. How do you do?
And meanwhile, Eric,
Cheers.
he's very, very focused on righting the wrongs of his past.
Can't stop thinking about the others out there. We can help them, can we? Identification, that's how it starts. And ends with being rounded up.
Eric is extremely worldly, but completely focused on a moral mission that is his own. It's his own mission, and when I say moral, it's his very own moral code.
There's a scene that sort of sets up the idea that the Eric character / Magneto is going to spend the rest of the film trying to hunt down my character. His name is Sebastian Shaw. I'm a mutant, billionaire, head of the Hellfire Club.
Which is basically Kevin Bacon's gang, who are the sort of the bad guys. Basically, we spend the whole of the time trying to chase around the good guys, who are the X-Men, obviously.
I play Angel Salvador, who is a go-go dancer that has these large tattoos on her back that are insect wings, and then they unfurl into real wings, and she is recruited by Professor X.
How would you like a job where you get to keep your clothes on?
It's pretty much creating the first group of X-Men. They don't really know that they're X-Men yet, but they're working with the CIA.
So we're to be the CIA's new mutant division, yes?
Something like that.
They're all learning how to use their powers and just kind of getting to know each other.
This is Hank McCoy, one of our most talented young researchers.
Hank is working at the MIB. He's a young, very intelligent scientist doing great work, but he also has these mutant abilities which he's kept under wraps.
So your mutation is what? You're super smart?
I wish that's all it was. Hank? You didn't ask, so I didn't tell.
You can show off.
You're amazing.
Really?
That relationship develops between, you know, two people who don't feel comfortable in their own skin.
I promised myself I'd find a cure ever since I was a little boy. You have no idea what I'd give to feel
Normal.
Hank, using Mystique's DNA, creates a serum which is meant to, in theory, normalize their appearance. Unfortunately, it doesn't have the desired effect. That's when, later on in the film, you meet the Beast character.
my plan is to incite world war during the Cuban Missile Crisis.
It shall be the policy of this nation to regard any nuclear missile launched from Cuba against any nation in the Western Hemisphere as an attack by the Soviet Union on the United States.
My idea is to get the humans to eradicate each other, thereby leaving a pure society of mutants.
There's a war coming, John.
Yes, but a war with who?
Excellent question. Though I wouldn't call it a war exactly. That suggests both sides stand an equal chance of winning.
At that point in the film, Charles and Eric are still kind of on the same team. But I think towards the end of the film, you see a split between the two.
A lot of us are mutants anyway, so it's just about which way you turn, you know, whether you turn to the good side or the bad side.
Charles is very much looking to the future and very much looking at how mutants will become integrated into society, whereas perhaps Eric is mired in the past, but you can't really blame him for it.
So much more to you than you know. Not just pain and anger.
You know, we latched on to the whole thing that the inspiration for it was Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, about two people having the same desires for the end result, but two very different ways of getting there. And so we just thought we'd play with that. Magneto as a character, it's, you know, to start with a kid in a concentration camp and see the pain and the torture that he went through and wanting to see him get the revenge and understand why violence comes much easier to him. I was concerned, can I pull that off?
Des plombages en métal, hein?
You know, saying to Michael, just imagine you're Bond, but you've got some superpowers. Bond has to use a watch to make it turn into a magnet. You can just use your hand.
They call it Cerebro. The electrodes connect Charles to the transmitter on the roof. When he picks up a mutant, his brain sends a signal through a relay.
Professor X is a bit of a sort of a pious, boring character in the rest of the movies. He's like a Buddhist monk in a weird way.
All right, Alex, try not to hit me. There's a good chap.
You're serious?
I'm very serious. I have complete and utter faith in you.
James and I thought, let's reinvent this character and see him being a bit of a flirt, a bit more confident.
X-Man.
I just said, don't try and be McKellen or Stewart. Yes, they were great, but we're reinventing it now and it's our own version. But keep that rivalry and friendship.
Tomorrow, mankind will know that mutants exist. They'll fear us, and that fear will turn to hatred.
It was a challenge, but they're both bloody good actors, so that makes life a lot easier.
Action!
I'm not doing this.
All right, Casting, we're not feeling comfortable with this. We're not going to...
One!
We have a situation. They're recruiting.
It's really amazing fun being mutants, especially the bad boy mutants. It's, you know, I get to chop up a lot of people and have a giggle.
In each of us, two natures are at war. Man's animal nature and his struggle to control it.
To take characters that we all know so well, but to look at them at an early stage of their life when they're discovering their powers for the first time and discovering there are other mutants out there, and just to explore that relationship between Professor X and Magneto was something that I was hugely excited about.
If you're using half your concentration to look normal, then you're only half paying attention to whatever else you're doing. Just pointing out something that could save your life.
All your life, the world has tried to tame you. It's time for you to be free.
To imagine things and put them on the page and then see them made real, even if they're mad, absurd, gigantic things, is incredibly exciting.
Everyone knows now with CG, you can do it. If you think of it, you can do it. And I just don't think the audience are impressed with it anymore. I think they're impressed that they get given a good story, and they're impressed that they can relate emotionally to the characters.
You know, Matthew would come up, just explaining what's gonna happen. He's like, okay, and then that window's gonna explode. I'm like, oh my God, the window's gonna explode. And then Kevin's gonna walk in. Oh my God, Kevin Bacon's gonna walk in. That's so cool.
When mankind discovers who we are, what we can do, each of us will face a choice. Be enslaved or rise up to rule.
Well, I think that audiences will be surprised that it's not just a simple popcorn, you know, da-da-da-da kind of movie.
The response that I've been hearing so far is that people are picking up on the fact that we've attempted to make an action film that's a little bit deeper and has a bit more substance than a lot of them.
But while there are people that are actually feeling things and relating to each other and feeling anger and resentment and jealousy and all those kind of human things, probably about every 2 minutes, something really cool happens.
What is your gift? What can you do?
Get back.
Films like this have to be entertaining, number one. You know, people aren't going to see a blockbuster to sit there and watch drama and learn about life.
We don't belong here, and that's nothing to be ashamed of.
My biggest problem with all these big blockbusters is you don't care about these characters.
You don't want to be against the world. You want to be a part of it.
Never be accepted into society.
Should we have to hide?
The whole of the X-Men world is quite unbelievable, and I think Matt's version, set where it is politically interesting, socially interesting, you know, and Fassbender and McAvoy rock it, and I'm well excited to be up there, slightly out of focus behind them.
Listen to me very carefully, my friend. Killing will not bring you peace. Peace was never an option.
That's it for the first half of this X-Men First Class 35mm special. But join us in part 2 when Magneto and Professor X, aka Michael Fassbender and James McAvoy, will go head-to-head and face-to-face.
You ready for this? Let's find out.
Welcome back to the X-Men First Class 35mm special. We've heard from the cast and crew about the making of the movie, but what about the film's stars? With huge audience expectation on their shoulders and some serious shoes to fill, the filmmakers decided to cast the lead roles with two of the most exciting young actors working today. In a world exclusive, James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender sat down on the eve of the film's release to discuss their work together on X-Men First Class.
Michael, thank you for joining me here today.
Pleasure.
Something's telling me that I want to ask you about the first time I saw you on screen. How did I feel about the first time I saw you on screen? The first time I saw you on screen was in Band of Brothers, and in which I actually thought you were American. I don't know why. There was a lot of Americans and a lot of Brits pretending to be Americans, but I thought you were one of the bona fide Yanks. And I was very surprised to find you on the street in a Vespa, and I thought, why has this guy got an Irish accent?
Why is he tapping me on the shoulder first?
No, there's a guy in a helmet. No, I'm being
Some
stopped.
crazed fan coming after you in a Vespa. Wait, we know each other.
Yeah, man, you ride a Vespa too, so do I. It's all cool.
Yeah, I know. First time I met James was on Band of Brothers. He was in a ditch. And I remember seeing this sort of cheeky, sort of Scottish chappy. And I was like, I like this guy's style. I just thought, you know, there was an element of mischief there and self-confidence.
Nice one.
And I thought I was very impressed.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Individuals with extraordinary abilities may already be among us.
McTaggart, you really think that some crackpot scientist is going to make me believe in sparkly dames and vanishing men?
I didn't really expect you to believe me. One of the many spectacular things my mutation allows me to do is that I can read your mind.
Are you gonna ask us to think of a number between 1 and 10 now?
No, Agent Stryker, although I could ask you about the Jupiter missiles America are currently placing in Turkey.
You brought a damn spy into this facility.
How's that for a magic trick?
Best I've ever seen.
Basically, when I first of all found out about the job, Matthew called me up and he sort of ran me through the story and what he wanted to sort of achieve with this new sort of installment of the franchise. And I was already sort of intrigued by Matthew sort of taking the helm here and trying to do something new and fresh with it. But then I found out that yourself, James, was going to be playing a young Charles, And I thought, well, you know, that's definitely, I knew that in you I would have a strong ally, and also an actor that I felt was pretty much cut of the same sort of cloth as myself in terms of a very practical person, thoughtful, sensitive in terms of approaching the work, and also with a sense of humour. So it was definitely a big draw for me.
When they said that they were thinking about kind of actors like you and the kind of work that you've got in your back catalogue as well, I just thought this film's going to be much more, I don't know, it's going to have much more oomph, I think, and much more power than I thought an X-Men movie should have, and that's not putting down the other X-Men movies, you know. But like you say, just somebody that treats it sensitively, has a sense of humour, but can also really, really deliver on the emotional stuff as well. And like you say, I felt like I might have a possible ally really early on. I hope you felt this way anyway, but I really early on kind of wanted to kind of nail my colours to the mast and just go like, I'm on your team.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And whether I really understand a particular point you're trying to make or a grievance you've got about the script or whatever it is, I'll back you up. Do you know
Exactly,
what I mean?
yeah.
And it's really important, it's really amazing to have that. That's why I'll be gutted if we do a sequel to this. If you're the bad guy and I'm the good guy and we don't really have any scenes together. So I'll need to find a new buddy.
Well, I think, you know, even like with whatever's going to happen in the future, you know, we always said the idea of sort of sitting down at the sort of grassroots part of it to try and sort of get that input in there. And the idea, what I've always found interesting about the relationship, even sort of in the, you know, in the later sort of series, the original sort of trilogy, with the two characters, what I've always found really intelligent and mature about the writing was the fact that, like great political leaders that are enemies, that idea that they can sit down, have lunch together and actually be very sort of amiable towards one another, you know, at the same time when there's massive conflict between the two characters. I think that's a very mature choice in dealing with two sort of characters that are at odds with each other. I remember the phrase which sort of rang through my head for months on end was you going, well, you know, at the very least we're going to have fun. Harking back to the sort of mischievous sort of side of being an actor, and I think, you know, sometimes that can get a little bit lost, especially in sort of present-day circumstances when there's so much money involved, and there's a lot of sort of, you know, numbers men involved, and obviously, you know, this is, you know, a big film with a lot of money at stake, but I still sort of had a, you know, a friend in James in terms of like, well, I started taking to sort of stealing the caddy carts and sort of and the gators or whatever I could get my hands on that was four wheels with a steering wheel, and sort of, you know, ripping around set and ripping in between sort of studios. And then James sort of cottoned on to that idea pretty quickly as well. So we sort of took turns driving the sort of little caddy cars around set. One day James got to the steering wheel before me, which was fine, so I decided to jump on the back of the caddy cart and counterbalance in the back. And we went screeching into the caravan village at the full 10 mile an hour that was allotted in those
I think it might have been 12, I think it was de-restricted.
I think it probably was at that point. They definitely restricted the engines after this incident. But
restricted my access, I don't know.
Yeah, well, James sort of came screeching into the caravan village and slap bang into the back of a Lexus. He went flying into the screen on the ground. I went flying over the back seat, banged my head off the steering wheel, and ended up in the driver's seat, and consequently got the blame. And that is sort of that remains like my fondest memory on X-Men. I actually have the scar to prove it. If we can get in there, that's a scar that sort of dates back to October now, I would say.
It does, man. I'm really sorry.
And I have that little memento.
The weirdest thing was, like, I was in the front, he was counterbalancing. We were really pulling some lovely lines. And I remember you saying at the time, you thought, wow, man, this guy is just...
like, he's good.
He's really,
this
really
guy's good.
But as we were coming around the corner, the tyres just caught traction and pulled us in at a right angle into the back of this Lexus. Like I said, I hit my head off the screen, and I flew about 10 feet.
Yeah, you did.
I got up immediately, looked up at the caddy car, and Michael was sitting in the driver's seat. I was really worried about you. And you just started laughing, like maniacally. Just full of life. I thought, Jesus, I think he might be slightly cracked. And then all the assembled crew were standing there, kind of shaking their heads and going, you guys are so bad, and blaming him. And then you ran away.
I ran away. I just
like,
sort of put like in a real sort of...
I'm not even exaggerating, but it was a...
It was a real Charlie Chaplin moment.
It was.
But you know, that's the getting back to it. I was like, God, this guy's really good. You know, fine, precise driving. I actually just realised you're crazy, and that was interesting.
That helped us know what we were in.
Exactly. Yeah. What it was all about.
What is an audience going to like? What do you think an audience is going to?
I don't know. I never really know how to answer that question. I know that personally, when I went to see it, what really impressed me about it, and full credit to Matthew for that, is the idea that there's elements in the script which are sinister. There's elements that are very sort of serious and somber moments, and yet at the same time, the characters send themselves up, and there's a kitsch element to it which I find fun, and Matthew manages to do that in a lot of his films. And, you know, I think what perhaps, and I don't want to sort of say this in any way, in any sort of arrogant way, I think, you know, as opposed to sort of most sort of superhero blockbuster action films, commercially based, we managed to retain a sort of character-driven piece, and a piece that sort of deals with complex relationships. And also, on top of that, we've got some great set-piece action pieces which are very imaginative and off the wall. And I think that's what hopefully will stand it apart.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the only thing I've got to add to that is just the fact that I don't think it's too po-faced. I don't think it takes itself too seriously. Like you say, the characters send themselves up, but the film sends itself up sometimes as well.
Which is something that you were always sort of trying to focus on as well. I remember you were always trying to sort of, wherever you could, sort of throw in a one-liner and you know, and sort of do that, and sort of, you know, harking back to that first meeting that we had, where you said, well, you know, at the very least, this is going to be fun. It has to be fun. If it's not fun, then the audience aren't going to find it fun.
These films aren't going to change people's lives, so they need to entertain. They've got to be a good ride, and hopefully, I think we've done that.
Yes.
Michael, I thank you.
James, I thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Okay, you ready? Sky, believe in better.